Today I'm going to cover Shifty and what it has to offer in terms of a solo and duo landing spot. I'm going to be showing you specific landing locations, loop paths, rotation potential, and efficient mat opportunities. With that being said, let's jump in. Beginning with a solo drop, as most drop locations have floor loot on the surface, be sure to be scouting for shield and strong early game gun spawns, along with being aware of anybody else that's dropping with you. With top main accompanying 3 chest spawns, it provides options with rotating through to each spawn or dropping down to floor loot spawns and another immediate chest spawn right through there. This drop also gives priority over the vending machine along with the solo chest spawn here, but make sure you are keeping an eye on anybody on the west side. With the east side of Shifty having 7 chest spawns, a vending, and from what I've counted 29 floor loot spawns, it is definitely the most optimal direct landing location of Shifty. Taking a look at a riskier landing at Shifty would be landing at the drone with 3 chest spawns and 3 floor loot spawns, where you can choose to fly over to houses, or choose to check the ball and hoverboard spawn and then rotate over to houses. Keeping in mind this has 2 grouped mushroom spawns, so you're almost guaranteed to have some sort of shield. This allows you to rotate accordingly if you choose to take an early game fight or carry on looting. Discussing Shifty as a duo landing spot, it's pretty straightforward unless your opponent chooses to make it a 50-50, depending on your initial glide off the bus. If your opponents do choose to make it more difficult or bring it to a 50-50, I'd recommend one teammate landing at the top main, with the drop down availability, and the other land at the east side chest spawn. This drop makes for an easy pinch on your opponents, as well as the likely chance that you will simply out-loot them and win the fight. This gives you elevation to start the fight, as well as efficient early game mats with multiple brick piles along the top surface, and trees scattered along with the railroad tracks here. With 4 quick chest spawns right off spawn, as well as some floor loot, you'll have control on the fight, choosing to make it slow or fast depending on your early game loot. With Shifty being pretty centralized on the map, it comes with strong rotation potential, giving a lot of options. Beginning with what I think is the most obvious is coming up to the west drone, which has 3 chest spawns, and scouting Old Greasy, along with the old power camp with 1 chest. Greasy has 8 chest spawns and decent floor loot, giving you upwards of 13 more chest spawns, including the small house. Moving into loot paths, as I mentioned before, Greasy is obviously a very viable option with the 8 chest spawns, as well as Polar, now that it's kind of broken down. Kind of gives you easier access through these slipstreams here to take a fight or even scout out if it is unlooted. Another obvious rotate would be going over to Chair, as it has 6 chest spawns, 2 on the big tree hill. That also has a vending machine as well as the ball spawn up above. One thing I also wanted to quickly mention was that this drone kind of gives you easy access to scouting out for potential loot paths, as you can try and scout off the initial glide of the bus, but coming up here on the drone and scouting out off the slips, it kind of makes it a lot easier to choose where you want to loot and rotate to. If you are looking to continue looting, and you do leave Shifty soon enough, you can usually capitalize on Tilted being so big and having quick access to the slipstreams, so you can go around the slip, scouting around all of Tilted to see what's looted and what's not. Another thing that's more dependent on zone, but if you do get it and the zone is going towards the east side of the map, you can hop into the slipstream and check the vending machine right at that shack, as you'll most likely have priority over it, unless the team from Salty doesn't really rotate over to it. With Shifty having a fairly central location on the map, it makes rotating easy, and you won't have any issues with making center zones if you prioritize correctly. As mentioned before, we have the drone overlooking Greasy and Shifty that makes it easy to relocate and travel around the area, as well as the slipstream just over Shifty Hill that gives fast and easy access to nearly anywhere on the map, excluding some of the outskirts. Quickly going back on what I talked about in prioritizing correctly, with it being that you might have to sacrifice a few extra mats or even some extra chest spawns to set yourself up for a better endgame, as well as making endgame rotates a lot easier. Something I did want to bring light to that not a lot of people know is that the ballers do spawn in the slipstream of Tilted, so with you being so close to Tilted, coming straight from Shifty to Tilted, you will have priority over the ball spawns in the slipstream here if you do choose to play with the ballers. It can be kind of tricky getting the ballers to the slipstream, but I'll demonstrate it here quickly. Previously, there was an issue with you hopping the ball and being unable to grapple, but they did make a fix, and you no longer have to get rid of the ball and get back in for your grappler to work. Finally, looking at the mats that Shifty provides, one thing being a big benefit is that Shifty does not lack metal. As a lot of landing spots do, there's railroad tracks just about everywhere throughout Shifty, covering most of the upper level, along with a large majority of the lower level. If you do find yourself running into a fight and spending a bunch of your metal, Shifty does have a few trucks along with some cars moving over to the house side. You can still achieve max brick, just make sure you are farming on your way out of Shifty, as there are a lot of brick piles along the top surface, as well as a few piles scattered throughout. Also quickly mentioning, the south side house basement has brick walls and floors. If If Shifty does lack something though, I would probably say it would be the brick, but slightly touching back on what I was mentioning about sacrificing things. For example, if you do get a zone in Mega Mall, and you know you can rebuild something there and recap your brick, that's something to keep in mind. As I probably don't even need to mention, but you can clearly see woods everywhere, and you're basically in a little forest, with all the trees being a pretty large source of wood. That's going to wrap my video covering Shifty. If you feel I missed anything, or want me to add anything in future videos, feel free to let me know. And if you do feel like further supporting me, my supporter creator code is parallel-ando with a 0. That's all. Peace out, guys.